couple of months ago, I released a video talking about what my expectations were for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It is by far the most popular video on this channel. In that video, I wanted to do a sort of timeline video in which I in-depth explain my FNaF timeline and what my FNaF movie would look like. So this is that video. Unlimited budget, unlimited runtime, this is what I would have wanted out of a movie. I'll go ahead and say that this is made up entirely of my own theories and headcanons and things like that. I will be hosting a follow-up video to this where I'll answer any questions or comments anybody might have, because I thought that was the main problem with MatPat's timeline is he didn't give the audience a chance to say what they thought. So yeah, this is my official FNaF timeline. It starts in 1970, when William Afton and Henry Emily, with a shared love of robotics, were inspired by the traveling roadside attractions of yore, like Fredbear's Singin' Show with a dancing bear, so they began working on the prototype for something called a springlock suit. They made characters like Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, Freddy Fazbear, Chica, and Bonnie, and they premiered these at carnivals and fall fests along with merch of the characters. They had opened a small restaurant named Chica's Party World under the name of William's side business, Afton Robotics, but that eventually fell through and its mediocre cast were retired. After earning enough money in 1972, the two opened a kids' restaurant, Fredbear's Family Diner, in Hurricane, Utah. The amazing Springlock technology led to the place being a hit. It could be worn on robots and by staff. It got so big they had merchandise like toys, masks, and a cartoon show. With this newfound success, Henry even started programming arcade games. By 1983, the two had started families with unnamed wives. William had Michael, Evan, and Elizabeth, and Henry had Charlie and Sammy. As they grew up, Evan was a shy kid who liked being friends with Charlie. Michael fell in with a bad crowd after always being sacked with babysitting Evan, so he started scaring Evan. His friends, Jeremy Fitzgerald, Fritz, and another, joined in the fun. Elizabeth was still very young. All she had was a toy Foxy toy she ended up tearing apart. William did love his kids when everything was successful, but feared for Evan and Michael bullying him. In late summer, he made Evan some little toys with walkie-talkies and stashed them around the neighborhood and in the house. Evan started talking to them, and they became his sort of imaginary friend. His brother did tear the head off Foxy. He loves the cast of Freddy's characters at his dad's other restaurant he opened, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which starred Freddy Fazbear, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, and Toy Foxy to be more kids-friendly and changed Pirates Cove to Kids Cove. Evan had friends in the neighborhood who knew of him and were excited about his party. He was a very nervous little kid who was also bullied. That mixed with seeing some things he misunderstood and hearing some scary stories his friend Cassidy told him after hearing about robots walking around and the company hiding bodies. He became terrified of the springlock suits. William tried to make him feel better. He even closed the restaurant for his birthday so all his friends could come. William was a man with a lot of issues himself. He was an immigrant from England who had an alcoholic father, but he strived to be a better father to his kids. Part of that included keeping his sons away from the faulty springlock animatronics. So he indulged his fear of them. The party was here, but nobody came, except for Michael and his friends. He wanted to pull a prank on his brother, make him kiss the thing that he was so terrified of. Evan was petrified. William was busy with work. The springlocks were advanced, sure, but extremely unreliable. The staff never wanted to wear them because even if they followed all the policy, there was no telling what the things could do. Michael and his three friends, all dressed as the main characters, picked him up, laughing, and he trembled. Even while in soup mode, Evan's tears triggered something that crushed his skull. Blood was everywhere. Michael was horrified. He got his dad from the office, they called the police, and they rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. As Evan's life faded, Michael had tears in his eyes. As he entered the void, Michael gave him the only half-hearted apology he could muster. William had gone home and brought him all his favorite toys, and they appeared to him. The room emptied. He knew his dad seeing him as an emotional mess would have been the worst final sight. For the last time, he talked to Fredbear to make him feel safe. Fearing the other plushies would scare him because of the mask his bullies were wearing, he took them away one by one. He made a promise he knew he couldn't keep. He would put him back together. Evan went on to possess the Fredbear plush. The Afton family crumbles. William turns to the bottle and lashes out at his family. His wife just sat watching TV most of the time. Evan's body, along with his golden Freddy mask he was supposed to wear at his birthday, were buried in the backyard. Michael goes to visit the grave, causing William to lock his son in his room. Fredbear's closed and was turned into a bar named Junior's. William and Henry were heartbroken. William and Henry created an animatronic, the security puppet. It recognized wristbands and watched the kids to make sure no kid left on their own like Michael used to leave Evan unattended all the time. One night, William went drinking. Elizabeth was asleep and Michael was in his room. Henry was playing Freddy that night. William went drinking at Junior's, but he had too much, and the staff asked him to leave. This made him angry, so he went to Freddy's to further stew on his loss. He drove there drunkenly and recklessly. The rain got bad, and he saw someone standing in the back alley. Charlie. She was being bullied by the same asshole kids that killed his son. He got horrible memories. And then a plan formed. William saw Charlie standing there, all alone, unattended. Charlie felt relieved that Uncle William would let her in from the cold after the mean kids locked her out. It was October in Utah. The rain was thick and cold. The security puppet was made to protect the kids using bracelets, so seeing Charlie made it want to get out of the trap and help. William got an idea. Why should Henry get to have everything he wanted while all he was left with was cold and alone with nothing, a small child to take care of, and being stuck with his son's killer? He needed to make Henry finally feel some of his pain. He knew how much he loved Charlie, like William loved Evan. It was time to even the scales. He dropped the liquor bottle on the ground and retrieved a small blade from his pocket. He then stabbed Charlie repeatedly and left her there. He saw the blood on his hands and he felt exhilarated. He sped off, his mind racing on how he could get away with this. The people at Junior's would say he was there all night, and if he went straight home, Henry would never suspect him. When he got home, he became furious with Michael for closing his door, and his wife tried to calm him down. Michael had mistaken a creature created from the agony of Charlotte, but mostly the evil of William, for the ghost of his brother. Michael ran to visit Evan's grave, but instead this shadow Freddy led him to Freddy's. He is surprised by the surrounding cop cars and crime scene tape. Henry walked outside to see why the cops were there. It was the puppet wrapped around something. It was Charlie, dead. He embraced his child and sobbed. How could he have let this happen to his daughter? The business was still a success, but the duo were still in grief, losing passion in their work. They decided to expand, hiring a technician named Edwin to make suits for expansion. He had some baggage with his wife and son, right at home with these two sad sacks. He built something called the Mimic. Some rogue AI maybe caused some accidental deaths, more shit to sweep under the rug. Fazbear Entertainment shoved in the safe room deep underground where memories sleep. The Springwalks and the puppet were all shoved in a back room. Kids began tearing up Toy Foxy until employees gave it the name Mangle. There was too much light on Charlie's murder for William, and he tried to contain his murderous urges. It wouldn't be too long until Henry started suspecting him, but as 1985 approached, he couldn't control himself. He had noticed the puppet had gotten tear tracks it didn't have before Charlie's death. The puppet would move on its own. Was it possessed? What if dying close to something made you possess it? This might be how to put Evan back together. On June 26, 1985, the height of the summer rush, the place was packed. William thought of a way to make his dark passengers shut up. He could put on a mascot costume, lure a kid to a back room, and slaughter them. He targeted those neighborhood kids, the ones who didn't come to Evan's party. He started with Susie. She was told about her dog's death, so he told her he was still alive and in the back. She and her brother Jeremy were lured to the back and slaughtered. Then Gabriel, then Fritz, one of Mike's no-good friends. He lured them with promises of treats, asking for help with homework, to making up elaborate stories. The last one, Cassidy. It was her party, right? The sign said, "Happy birthday, Cassidy." William thought of what he should do. Charlotte thought this could get their place shut down and they'd be trapped forever. She knew since she died next to the puppet, maybe if they died inside the suits, they could possess them. The stage was closed and all the suits were in the back. She thought this would work. She shoved them in the suits until they were horrible messes. Their body turned into red goo, blood, and mucus. The machinery was unbelievably horrid. William lured Cassie to the back room with promises of a private party with all her friends, Susie, Gabriel, Fritz, and Jeremy. When he got there, he had lost control. He was in a haze where he couldn't remember what he had done. The suit stank of death. He didn't remember if he had put the bodies there. His murderous urges barely contained as he knocked out Cassidy with a shovel, and as she slowly died, he put her in Golden Freddy, the suit that killed his son. He tripped the spring locks. She died slowly and swiftly possessed the suit. She starts to hear a voice, crying. She didn't want anyone to feel like she felt at that moment. She wanted to help whatever poor soul was trapped in here, but she was also filled with anger at the demon that had done this to her. William took off the springlock suit. His mind raced. What was he going to do? Charlie's death could be blamed on a mugging gone wrong, or random act of violence. But this? He took off the suits. Cassie watched as this man was about to make a getaway. William thought that he could seal the safe room as he did every night and walk out. There was no reason for him to not be there. The suit made him not have to have a drop of blood on him. On the security cameras, he walked out, sweating but exhilarated, and murmurs of "Where are our kids" started growing as night fell. William again drove back into nervousness. He chugged a liquor bottle. The cops had found the security footage of him walking out. It was over. Since all the police presence was at Williams, Fazbear Entertainment, including Fungi, which I will call Jonathan because I love Night 5, collected the damages at the restaurant. But when they unlocked the safe room, they found everything. They cleaned up the scene, got rid of whatever was left of the body, and got rid of the blood. Company policy said they had to be missing, not dead. Once they got rid of everything, there was a code of silence. This was not to leave this room. They were riddled with guilt. This discovery could have brought justice to the victims and their families, but it was too late. If they said anything, they would be under the guns of Fazbear lawsuits. William was arrested and questioned. He was shown the footage. It was him. But the cheap cameras couldn't tell anything. There were no bodies. It could have been anyone in the suit. To quote Taylor Swift, "I think he did it, but I just can't prove it. No body, no crime." William was a sloppy killer who had only gotten away through extremely lucky circumstances. He had even spent some time in lockup. They couldn't prove William had done anything. No bodies, no charge. Nothing was ever proven in a court of law. This went down as the missing children's incident. The restaurant became a media circus. The press haphazardly reported on this. The warning of 5 kids, William's time in jail awaiting trial as a conviction. He had to be let go as a suspect because there was no proof of a crime even being committed. As more and more time passed, the suits reeked of death, leaking residual blood with their agony within the metal. No one wanted to go to this weird place anymore. Fazbear Entertainment sank. Henry took up the company and kicked Afton out. After his apparent victory, he thought more about the night and what he was going to do with that puppet thing. He watched ghost stories on TV and stupid things, but he had a realization. Carly possessed the puppet, which led to her thinking she could make those kids possess the suits by being inside them. When he was with Henry, he saw how they were oriented. The MCI was scattered and frantic. Could this be the secret to eternal life? Could the remnant of whatever happens when someone dies near something bring poor Evan back? Could someone with more life left have more remnant inside them? Maybe whatever was left of his soul was in the Fredbear suit and that doll. He used his immense wealth from his restaurant where he could build a bunker. He had to know more, so he worked tirelessly on the fun times, sleepless night after sleepless night. He created one for Elizabeth, one for Evan with a Bonnie puppet named Bonbon, William's alter ego, talking to him, and one for his wife, Ballora. This had gone far past dingy restaurants and cheesy cartoons on local television. This was art. Hell, he even made one for Michael. He made this under Afton Robotics and even took Funtime Chica. Technicians were hired to make sure nothing went wrong. He couldn't mad dash murder like the MCI. He needed to make it so the robots only got kids who were alone and could be stored inside to harvest their energy. Maybe even have some new features like mimicking voices like that stupid mimic thing used to do. This was perfect. It was then he was hit with divorce papers. His wife was leaving him. Poor Elizabeth and Michael were stuck here during the missing children's incident. He wanted them back. So before the 2 kids, William, his wife, and their lawyers went into the proceedings, William fed her with lies to tell about her mother with the promise that they could all live together. Michael looked at him. He had gotten himself into hot water, sure, the police thought he had something to do with it, but apart from that, his drinking buddies from juniors, lawyers, and doctors, he shook hands in that hallway. He was respected in his community. His wife felt her case was falling apart, and when she had heard the awful things Elizabeth said, she died of a broken heart. She went to her small apartment, went into her bedroom, and swallowed a bottle of pills. The remaining family members felt awful. Elizabeth's young mind was sad and confused. William showed her Circus Baby. She was in love with the big robot Dad made just for her. This is what pushed her to become obsessed. They were in a bunker. William knew with her technology that if she was alone for even a second, it would get her. William locked her away until the brand new Afton Robotics restaurant, which would surely beat Fazbear Entertainment. Opening day was a hit. Kids and adults marveled at the technology. The kids had seen Circus Baby and were excited, but they wanted to see the others. Elizabeth remained, alone. She was so young. She was so young that she lost her mom and her big brother. Her dad was always working, and her brother was always crying in Evan's room holding psychic friend Fredbear. She had seen him do it, and it broke her heart. She went to see Circus Baby and finally became happy. The robot offered her ice cream, and when she went to get it, the claw came out and swallowed her whole. William realized he hadn't seen Elizabeth in a while. He ran into Circus Baby's room and she wasn't there. He knew exactly what happened. He tried to tell everyone a gas leak had shut the place down, but nobody bought it. He buried the robots underground. People found out why Elizabeth was missing. The blueprints could tie him to something like the MCI. They could build a tremendous case about him, lock him up for 6 murders, and being found guilty of 2 accidental deaths could sink him financially. He locked it all behind a bookshelf, deep underground where memories sleep. He opened a rental service where the robots could be rented out for parties, where they would kidnap kids and bring them back to the bunker for remnant harvesting. He said Elizabeth had gone missing, but as usual, the police couldn't find anything. He had let himself go after Elizabeth died, lost a considerable amount of weight, grew a beard, and got glasses. He honestly started to look a lot like Henry. He spent a lot of time messing with sound and perception. He had found that sound at a certain pitch could make average things appear terrifying. He needed to know more, so he experimented on Michael. He put him in a fake bedroom and filled it with illusion discs and hallucinogenic gas to make Michael feel some of the pain his brother felt. By November of 1987, the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was opened by Henry. Henry buried himself in making this place the best it could be, while his suspicions of William became desperate memories. Mainly, he was just grieving for Charlotte and the loss of his family. He believed Charlotte's death was a random tragedy. Whoever did it might have done that MCI thing. Maybe it was that weirdo Edwin. He lost a kid too, right? Edwin had been missing for a while. Nothing could be done. To make sure nothing like that happened again, he encoded a criminal database recognizer in the robots, a much more advanced version of the security puppet that Charlotte died next to. The sickly William Afton applied. Jonathan interviewed him. He breezed through the resume, and the fake ID passed. Dave Miller was hired for the night shift. He saw a group of 6 unruly kids who wanted to break in and have the place all to themselves. The animatronics seemed to be asleep after the incident or walking around aimlessly. This was it. William put on the Fredbear suit, and Cassidy was apprehensive about her body being used as a tool of murder. William searched for anything he could find: cheap rolling pins, dull knives, and old spring-lock cranks. William watched with murderous glee, and he cut throats, stabbed, and bludgeoned. He felt more empowered than ever as he heard something spell out "save them," to which he responded with a grin, "You can't." The next morning, the bodies were discovered. The clever son of a bitch who did this put them in the security camera's blind spots. William was moved to day shift, and the investigation was quickly shoved under the rug. This Jeremy guy worked night. Why did that name sound familiar? Jeremy was told about an investigation in lockdown. One day when Jeremy worked the day shift, that weird mangle thing went haywire and bit him on the head. He lived with severe damage to his frontal lobe. These 2 incidents was too much, and Henry shut the place down. Jeremy was sent his last paycheck, paid for all of William's work since Mr. Miller could get fucked after what happened. Mr. Miller. Henry finally did the background check he should have done on him, but no record of anyone with that name owning a Utah driver's license. He investigated the interview. He thought Dave looked familiar, but he thought it was deja vu. Holy shit, it was William. Why would William do such a thing? Everyone thought he was dead somewhere. Elizabeth was never found. Nothing of him remained except Michael. He didn't want to think about William, but was also obsessed. Henry told the police all he knew, but they didn't believe him. There was no evidence Afton did any of this, but they thought they had their man with Mr. Miller. But they couldn't prove that either. Jeremy told Michael about the weird stuff at Freddy's. Michael wanted to know more, so he got himself a fake ID. He wanted to honor his missing friend, and his middle name was Smith, his mother's surname, Fritz Smith. The name fit him well. Michael took a job at Freddy's and knew something was off. He messed with the animatronics, but this was discovered by staff, and he was fired. The shady Fazbear Entertainment pinned the bad-smelling animatronics on Mike. William went home and hid in the bunker. It was still behind the office bookshelf. The surveillance rooms and everything was still there. The rental service took care of the bills. William started beating Michael and putting him through more nightmares. Meanwhile, Henry reopened the old restaurant. Pizza wasn't bad, decent business, but the rancid animatronics made the business dwell around 1992. Michael didn't buy William's story. Michael contacted Henry, and Henry said he only reopened as a trap for William since the restaurant was on a shoestring budget. Michael knew what was going on. He got a job as a security guard to catch William if he snuck in. Michael started noticing all the weird things happening with the animatronics that happened at his last job. Michael started having those same nightmares again. He even heard his work calls, and the monsters worked the same way. Henry needed more time to catch William before the place closed down, hence he and Fazbear Entertainment pinned the odor of the animatronics on Michael and fired him. Without a budget to get another guard, as one had gone missing and the other stank up the place, around December, William told Michael what had happened to Elizabeth, saying her death was a freak accident and that she possessed Circus Baby and needed to be put back together, reminded of who she was. Williams' rental business failed after Afton Robotics got its bad public image. He needed more remnant to truly put his son back together. On a rainy night in February of 1993, William broke in night after night, stealing the endoskeletons, even Golden Freddy to truly resurrect his son. He used Shadow Freddy to lure the robots. One night, he ran in to steal more animatronics, but the spirits lingered. Cassie cornered him in the place where he had killed them all those years ago. William's mind raced. He remembered wearing the Freddy mask could deflect the spirits. He reached for his old Spring Bonnie costume to scare him off. He laughed with glee, only to be blindsided with moisture dripping through the decrepit ceilings. Every part of him was punctured. He couldn't even scream. He just writhed in pain and slowly died. But his remnant wouldn't let him. A robbery was reported, and Henry went to collect the damage. Henry held back tears as he saw all his creations destroyed, and he took them again. Murmurings by investigators went wild. The endoskeletons were made out of steel, and maybe someone melted them down for cash. Henry reopened the safe room to clear it out before they went out of business. He looked inside and found William. Blood pooled on the wall and floor. His body twitched with pain, and he let out one muddled "Henry." Henry had nothing but pity and contempt for this man. He locked and sealed it. Michael was determined to find him. Henry retired, and Michael came to see him one day. He knew Henry knew. He asked one final time, "What happened to my father, Uncle Henry?" Henry solemnly said, "I'll never hurt anybody again." Michael went down to the bunker his dad told him about. He had come to learn all his suspicions were true. His dad wasn't Monster. He killed Charlie. He had killed Fritz. And Michael fumed with rage. He put his sister back together, but that came with the consequences of the scooper killing him. An amalgamation of the fun times named Ennard used Michael's body as a disguise to escape the bunker. As Michael degraded, he vomited Ennard into the sewer, and then the remnant from the scooper caused him to possess his own body, and eventually heal and look like a normal person. Michael eventually married and had a daughter in 2012. He gave her Elizabeth's middle name, Vanessa. He had a steady job in life. Henry, during this time, had been enjoying retirement. All the old arcade games had been returned to him. He had started noticing strange behaviors. The games would play normally but show things that weren't programmed. Games like Foxy Go Go Go, Take Cake, Fruity Maze, Midnight Motorist, Mangle's Quest, Balloon Boy's Air Adventure, and Give Gifts were infected. He used the metal from those animatronics to communicate with the spirits. To be put back together, you have to have your memories back. Henry hid the fact that one of his victims was his daughter before coming clean. He made games retelling the story of the Afton family, talking about Evan through the Fredbear plush as the narrator, narrating not only William's communications but also Evan's thoughts. He made games for Michael and for Elizabeth, a game to remind them of William's murders and dismantling of the animatronics. Cassie and Charlie were able to talk to him through the games. This is how they'll set the kids free. In 2015, a small startup company was trying to buy out the dormant Fazbear Entertainment. Henry refused, so the company opened an old abandoned building and raided the old places. No endoskeletons could be found, but they had the shells. The place was on a shoestring budget, but they used that for authenticity. Hallucinogenic gas would leak, and there was exposed wiring, again for authenticity and scare factor. Commercials started playing for Fazbear Frights, and when Michael saw it, it all came crashing back. Why would someone do this, making a haunted house out of people's misery? He was disgusted. But then he had an idea. He remembered a promise he had made to his dad, that he would come find him. This is where he might be. He applied for the night shift and got it, and the second night he was there. Michael noticed some boxes filled with activity books for pretend security guards and children's books named Fazbear Fright. The old shells were haunted, and he could see Evan talking with someone else. Not quite the family reunion he was expecting, as William seemed to be out for blood. Wherever William went, Charlie followed. After 5 nights, the faulty wiring mixed with the gas, and the place went up in smoke. But that wasn't enough for William. He always comes back, after all. Michael told Henry William escaped. They needed some way to get the animatronics together in one place. Henry thought of his last location. He needed a fake restaurant to lure them all in. He had listened Michael to run the place. They used the old Fredbear's family diner. Michael's job was to bring them in and test them every night. Once he had them all, Henry played his last tape and set the place on fire. Michael found an escape route and thought for a second about staying. But he had a family, and there was still a chance William could get away. He always comes back, after all. Cassie and Charlie set up the pieces to try to get Evan's memories back. They literally tried to reconstruct his brain. The last thing Evan remembered was a gift his dad never got to give him, the golden Freddy mask. He would finally get his happiest day. He would have friends to celebrate his birthday with. Henry, Elizabeth, and Charlie knew something was wrong. Their spirits lingered. William was sent into a coma-like state. He was forced to have his own creations tear him apart over and over. He cried for anyone to end this torment. Cassie was not done with him. She would hold him here. She would keep him here. Until Henry appeared to her and tried to tell her that revenge is not worth it. Just let him suffer and find your own peace. The burned building was investigated and police ruled it as a suicide by the owner. Rumors flew until it became farcical as ghost hunters began investigating the sites. Phone Dude's startup was failing due to the unholy PR, so what better way to get it back than not to cover up the truth but to go full force with these legends and rumors? He contacted the only two people still connected with the company, and all he found was Sammy Emily and Michael Afton. Michael wanted in, and wherever Fazbear Entertainment went, William followed. Phone Dude ran through their plans and showed them what they had made, like children's books. They needed everyone to think all these stories were tall tales so they could get business back on track. He took an up-and-coming video game developer named Steve Snodgrass to make the games. Michael was his advisor, giving him details surrounding the events to the point where they look identical. It was a hit. People picked apart the game's story. After Steve unfortunately disappeared, they had to make a VR game from Silver Parasol where they completely denied all stories about the brand. Michael got his daughter a job out of college as a beta tester, but some strange things started happening after they got scanned in old circuit boards for more authenticity. One was named the Mimic. Jeremy had started becoming distressed and cut his own face off. Ape Girl logged all of this. The Mimic knew that anyone named Jeremy couldn't have a face, so he made Jeremy cut it off. By 2024, they had opened the Pizzaplex. They had hired a man named Mr. Burroughs as chairman. Vanessa became brainwashed by the killer AI, and so had a young kid named Gregory. Gregory had a couple of friends, one named Cassie Fitzgerald, and good parents. The Mimic tried to make Vanessa and Gregory into Elizabeth and Evan since Michael was still alive. They even had the same past. Therapists had started going missing after some suspicious tapes were recorded. Strange things were going on in the Pizzaplex, and the puppet almost had a presence, affecting different things. The Mimic virus remembered making sticky notes with David. He tried to brainwash Gregory into thinking he was Evan through sticky notes. He had even created an identical replica of Michael's room. Gregory was able to break free from the virus, but not in time to escape the Pizzaplex, after hacking into the robot AI. Gregory was able to get Glamrock Freddy on his side. It was easy since Freddy is a prototype. While spending the night in the Pizzaplex, he came upon Michael's secret hidden room, with a message Edwin wrote. He also found the poster room, where the ghost of Charlie tried to save Gregory from the Mimic's control. Eventually, Gregory played Princess Quest and freed Vanessa from the Mimic's control. The Mimic wasn't done, though. Weeks passed, and the company ordered a new round of books to cover up anything about the Mimic, filling them with inconsistencies to discredit the rumors. They wanted to pretend the Mimic hadn't hacked in, so they covered up the death of the Glamrock Bonnie, and employees were sworn to secrecy. Cassie had a dad who had worked there. He loved Bonnie, but never talked about what had happened to the robot. Mike had gotten Jeremy a job, as they were both trying to atone for the mistakes of their past, and they were old friends. He had played a game where he had learned about Circus Baby, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, and the Pizzaplex. He possessed one of the staff bots. After this, the Mimic used Gregory's voice to lure his friend Cassie to the Pizzaplex. Jeremy watched as the same fate that befell him had passed on to his daughter as the Mimic took its next victim. Alright, that is my complete timeline. Please state any objections or questions down in the comments below. And yeah, see you guys next time.